Hi, everyone. So a fun fact, I have no idea what's going to happen today. I have prepared maybe 3 different presentations in this deck. Oh, I was never given a clicker. Thanks. But what I do know I want to talk about today is what it means to be on purpose and how being on purpose is truly an act of incredible courage. So, first of all, so who's heard of me? That's like the most uncomfortable question. Okay, cool. Like before Creative Morning. Okay, cool. Oh, awesome. Okay, not that many. Great. And how many of you have questions? Like, how many of you are just already like, I have a question that I'd love to ask? No one. I was hoping for a miracle because I'm way better conversationally. Okay, cool. Cool. So my name is Lindsey Murphy, and I'm the creator and host of a kids science show on YouTube called The Fab Lab with Crazy Aunt Lindsey. And I'm probably going to circle around to how that show came to be. But what I want to start with is telling you that it's so weird for me to be standing in front of all of you guys today because I moved here to Portland 4 years ago, and 4 years ago I would have staunchly, completely denied being a creative person. And funny enough, a courageous person. So as I was preparing over the past several months to talk to you guys today about what courage means at a thing called Creative Morning, which is notorious. I'm from New York, where Creative Mornings started, so it's like, whoa, like Seth Godin gave a Creative Morning, right? Like Simon Sinek, like why am I talking? Like it doesn't make sense, right? But the journey that I've been on as a person for the past 33 years, but probably the past 7 years has been the journey that has put me right in front of you today. And it's connected to Crazy Aunt Lindsey, yes, but it's also connected to me coming into my fullness as a person who operates with courage. And it really has only been the past few weeks as I was preparing for this talk that I even realized that I related to the word. How many of you feel like you can relate to being courageous? How many of you would be like, I'm a courageous person? Okay, that's like maybe 40% of the room. But there's still another 60% of you who are probably incredibly courageous but have no idea that you are. In the same way that I had no idea that I was creative until I started on this process. So as I was doing some research, I happened upon this quote: "The more creative you are, the more trouble you're in." And that is from legendary ad guy, George Lewis, who, funny enough, was giving a Creative Morning when he said this during a Q&A. And it was when he said that I was like, oh, now I get why people think I'm creative. I'm always in trouble. Ever since I was a kid, I was a really precocious child that asked a lot of questions. Why? How? When? Why not? And if any of you have kids, you all know that kids are just born with that. I mean, they say mama and dada, and it's like, oh my God, they're talking. And then I'm like, no, why? And you're like, oh, okay. I don't even want you anymore, right? But that was me. I think my first question was probably why and why not and when can I? I always wanted to touch things. I always wanted to do stuff. And that got me into trouble all of the time. So moving through childhood, As if any of you know any, like read articles or happen upon articles that say things like this, at a certain point, kids, when they're like 5 years old, they're like max creative, right? They're completely creative, like their brain nodes are firing and everything is new to them and they're excited about the world. And then within a couple of years, they turn into people who are far less creative and imaginative than they were born. I believe that we are born creative. I also believe that we are born courageous. And those are things that are conditioned and trained out of us over time. So one of my goals as a person on the planet is to reverse that. My goal with the Fab Lab with Crazy Aunt Lindsey, for sure, is to educate kids on science education, but it's a little bit more than that. My goal is to ensure that kids have access to science education sooner, to ensure that parents feel empowered and more confident to participate in their kids' STEM education at home. And I also want to make sure that kids see themselves represented in all of the ways that science presents, that STEM and STEM fields present. But there's another thing that the Fab Lab does. If you ever have seen, who has seen an episode? Okay, for most of you who haven't, go home and watch it, it's great. But one of the comments that most people give me about the show is, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. It's so relatable. I absolutely love it. I can see myself doing this project. And I love hearing that because just 10 years ago, most adults who were looking at a show on Science Channel or reading an article about science would feel completely detached from it unless they were a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I was a babysitter that had a bunch of kids that kept asking why. And because I was the child of a family that, if nothing else, encouraged my bravado in curiosity, I wanted to return the favor. I wanted these kids to feel like they could completely indulge themselves in the experience of discovering the answers to the world around them on their own. So a nature walk, right? Or excuse me, a walk home from school, which is maybe 10 minutes, would be turned into a nature walk. You can do that so easily, just pointing at grass and picking up rocks and identifying trees and flowers, taking those things home and seeing what you can make with them once you got there. Same thing with, lemons, having a bowl of lemons. There are 101 ways that you can talk about chemicals and chemistry with just a set of lemons. And one lemon can open up an entire world for a kid. And it can help them to understand what it means to make mistakes, not know what an answer is, and not give up in the finding of the answer. Not giving up is required for courage. But the way that we train kids is to stop once an answer has been provided. And sometimes that answer is because that's how it is. It's always been that way. Or the worst, because I said so. Right? No kid wants to hear that. Like, I need more context. But when you indulge a kid in their curiosity, right, and empower them to feel comfortable and confident making mistakes, you grow courageous adults. And I think that there are a lot of adults in the world, period, that don't realize they're courageous because it's been trained out of them for so long. So I grew up in the Christian tradition where my examples of what a good woman were from like Ruth and her Boaz, right? And the proverbial woman, or excuse me, the virtuous woman in Proverbs. These are stories about women who were passive participants in the circumstances created around them. They worked really hard, and they served everyone around them, but no one ever really served or provided their emotional needs, asked them if they were missing something, and there was almost never money exchanged with these women, right? But they worked and they worked and they worked and they worked, and they just hoped that someone would happen upon them and give them everything that they needed. And you don't need to be a Christian to go much further for similar stories. I mean, let's talk about Cinderella. Let's talk about Sleeping Beauty. Let's talk about, Snow White. These are people who were just passively moving through the circumstances of their lives. And because they were pretty and complacent and quiet and polite and well-behaved, someone stumbled upon them and said, "You're worthy of something really extraordinary, happily ever after." Right? And I really internalized that for most of my life. When I moved into my career actually it's pretty funny, from 2005 to 2008 was the first, what I'll call decade of my career. I went through a couple of collegiate experiences, and then ended up at MTV Networks before I graduated from community college, and so I ended up not going to Rutgers to work at MTV. I mean, it was MTV. It was like a dream come true, and I was like 20. But what ended up happening was I said yes to a job at a company that I viewed as my knight in shining armor. And I was willing to do anything in that place to stay in the castle and to be taken care of and be given this extraordinary life. But this is what ended up happening. I ended up doing things that were completely out of my character. And I'm not talking about, weird stuff. I mean, skill sets that I developed. I'm an extreme extrovert. My job was at a small desk in an edit suite, and I was crunching numbers all day, and I was looking at spreadsheets, and I was miserable. I learned a lot in that place, but I was very clearly in the wrong place. But because I was charismatic and I could communicate with people, different kinds of people, I ended up moving along rather quickly, and then I ended up getting recruited into another role at a gaming company, and then recruited into a role at an advertising agency in New York, Deutsche Advertising, and it's there that I got into new business development. And anyone that works at an agency, new business development is grueling. It's grueling. Girl. Girl. And especially at an agency like Deutsche, right? They are just always churning and burning and churning and burning and winning, but still it's just this grind. And I was not a new business development person. I was a charismatic, fun person that probably should have been on the account side. I don't even know. But I found myself doing this thing because I was able to talk to a lot of people and see a lot of different pieces of a puzzle, and that kept being rewarded. But I was aimless in my career goals. I just wanted to stay in the castle with my knight in shining armor. But what ended up happening is at 25, 26, I was recruited to another small agency in New Jersey as their director of business development. And what's incredible is that I was making the amount of money, had the title, had the car, had the apartment, had the friends, that in my mind as a child would have made me an extremely successful person. But one day, I was supposed to get ready for a meeting with a really big company, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I literally couldn't take myself. I couldn't swing my feet over the side. And now, I am not a depressed person. I know that everyone experiences depression, it's a normal, natural thing, but I am not generally a person who is debilitated by that level of fear and anguish, right? But that is what I felt. And I just knew in that moment that there was something wrong. Something wasn't right. And so within a couple of weeks, I ended up handing in my resignation to this company, and I moved out of my fancy apartment, and I moved into a friend's pool house where I babysat. Because I knew I needed to find myself, and I needed to pay my bills in the meantime. And so that is a story. When I tell people that story, people will often say, Lindsey, like, that was pretty courageous. And I'm like, I didn't feel courageous. I felt alone. I felt weird. I felt pressure because my mom was like, you need insurance. Like, why are you babysitting? I didn't feel courageous, but 10 years on the other side of it, that was probably the most courageous thing I ever did. And it looked hella messy. Most people think courage is this like amazing bravado thing with like hair blowing in the wind and like a torch, you know, it's like, and people, and it's like bad, you know, I'm just because I'm wearing army, but I love my outfit, by the way. But thanks. But that's not what my courage looked like. So in the same way, I never saw myself as creative, right? Because as a kid, like anytime I tried to color, it just turned brown, and like I couldn't cut in a straight line. Like just every stereotype that I had about what creative was, I wasn't that. And so in this case, every stereotype that I had about what courage looked like wasn't that. I was a hot mess millennial, really old millennial, that like couldn't go home and like had to do this weird thing, went from making almost 6 figures to making like $15 an hour. Like that's humbling, you know? But I think everybody needs to get humble sometimes, because I think humility oftentimes leads to courage. And that is for sure what happened in that season of my life. So I'm babysitting for all of these like really cool parents in Montclair, New Jersey, and their kids are asking me why? Why? How? When? Can we? You know, what can we do with sugar? And like, okay, fine, guys. Like, you want to make some granola? Let's make granola, but like, let's make it real. Let's like use oats and pecans and like smell it and like do it, right? And so over time, I had parents who were like, wow, you know, Lindsey, we love what you do with our kids. Can you like do a birthday party? And I'm like, yeah, birthday party for sure. And so I start doing birthday parties in addition to play dates and like all this thing. Just for about 18 months, I'm just this weird babysitter who's like much older than everybody else's babysitter, you know, and like wearing like, you know, like Prada. Cause like, I mean, it was the weirdest thing, I swear. Like I think about it. So anyway, and so, you know, in these 18 months, I kind of, you know, came to a place where I felt like I was in a groove with myself. I was re-identifying what it is that I wanted, because the reason why I found myself not able to get out of bed that day is because I kind of was a passive participant in the conditions that other people made for me, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to be passive anymore. I'm going to be like, I'm going to have a goal. And like what I want to be, what I always wanted to be when I was a kid was a writer. I wanted to like be a fashion writer, and like I wanted to be Anne Wintour, like let's be real. But I'm like, I want to be a writer and I want to get into this. But at the same time, this whole world of digital is happening. YouTube launches within a couple of years of this. Like all of these things start sort of bubbling to the surface. Facebook and Twitter starts being taken seriously by, you know, major media outlets and brands. And I'm offered a job to work on an Xbox project launching Connect. We didn't know it was Connect at that point. It was called Project Natal at the time. It was a top secret, you know, project. But so I get picked up to do that. So I was moving back into New York, tell these, you know, 11 families, hey guys, I'm moving back into this city. And they're like, no, okay, let's, you know, we'll throw you a party. So they throw me a party. At this party, one of the dads goes, hey, have you ever heard of YouTube? I'm like, yeah, it's like 2008, 2009. I'm like, I heard of YouTube. He's like, yeah. He's like, well, the kids, you know, the kids are really going to miss you. You should put some videos on like YouTube. And at the time, like 2008, 2009, like early adopters knew what it was, people who like really were into the internet, but most people were like, YouTube, like, you mean leave Britney alone, that guy? Like, no, right? And that was kind of how I felt, right? I was like, YouTube is a weird thing and maybe it's gonna go away, so like, no. But a year later, because of this project I was working on with Xbox, I got to meet all of these like beauty vloggers and mommy bloggers and like all of these people well before those were things, like well before. This is like I said, 2009. And so I'm like talking to these people and meeting them, and these are like smart, interesting people that just like have weird little cameras and like editing suite. It was just so weird. And so I was like, yeah, okay, so maybe this could be a thing. So once the project with Xbox ended, I found myself on vacation with my family, and I was thinking to myself, what is my next step? Because the project had ended, and I'm like accidentally a consultant, right? So where am I gonna get clients? I'm like super young and like don't know how to talk to anybody. So I'm like, well, I have a little bit of time. I'll make some videos because I know that I'm going to need to babysit at some point, like as a safeguard, right? So I called my friend Shirian, who I knew from Nickelodeon, and I'm like, hey, will you come meet me in New Jersey? Like meet me and my goddaughter. We're going to make Play-Doh. And he's like, yeah, sure. So a couple weeks later, he comes out and he shoots me and my niece making Play-Doh. And about a week later, he returned, and I was expecting a home video. Like, straight up, I was expecting, like, crap. Because I'm like, just, will you? Yeah. So he emails me this file. I open it up, and I'm making all these funny faces, and there's music, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, holy poop, I have a show. Like, by accident, like fully, like I just wanted to make a video because these dads said but it was I looked at this thing like, this is a huge opportunity. I don't know quite what yet, but I see huge opportunity here. So I emailed this video out to the 11-person email list of the parents that I had been babysitting for the year before, like, hey, I made this video. Immediately got like totally booked for like every babysitting job ever. I didn't need to like pitch new business for like a month and a half. It was real good. And I got to like hike my prices up because I was a brand, you know? I mean, I was really like, you know, I worked in new business, you know what I mean? So I'm in my mind, I'm like, how can I like inch out every other babysitter? How can I be the best babysitter ever and like charge like $25? So anyway, so the show started by just being something I offered to parents that was kind of really just to keep getting jobs, like getting babysitting jobs. But in my mind, I'm like, this is like the bow, like this thing. I was just having fun that day, but I saw a huge opportunity. I saw this character that just came out that was very reminiscent of who I was with my own nieces and nephews and godchildren. But I wasn't quite sure what was going to be possible with this because it was mine. I had complete control over it. And I was afraid to tell anyone that I thought that this was a lot more than a weird little video series. So Celie, funny enough, earlier during the introduction said, I've been independently producing content for the past year. The truth is, I've been doing it for 7 years. 7 years I have been quietly, secretly, patiently, painstakingly poring over this work of my life and not telling anyone. I mean, legitimately. At a certain point, a friend was like, oh, you're still making your show? I'm like, yeah, okay, let me look at my channel. He's like, Lindsey, these don't even have titles on them. Like, your videos don't even have titles. Like, you're making it impossible for people to find this. And I'm just like, well, I've been working on it. I've been doing it, like Oprah will find it and she'll say it's great. And then like all the dreams come true. I was still hoping and wishing and expecting for a knight in shining armor to come along and validate this thing that I deeply, secretly needed to live. But I didn't feel like I had the personal power to say, this is worthy. This is a thing. This is real. This is valuable. I was desperate for someone else to come along and say, this is great. We're going to give you everything that you need. And guys, shit doesn't work like that. Think about every great thing that has ever happened to you in your life. Think about every extraordinary thing that has ever happened in the world, right? On my personal list are things like a woman's right to vote, the abolishment of slavery, getting to the moon, whether or not we actually did it, I mean, whatever. If you watch YouTube, you know there's a question. But good marriages, great sex, success, joy, these things happen on purpose. But we walk around pretending that if we just keep doing all the right things, someone will accidentally happen upon us and everything will be okay. Everything will be great. And guys, things just don't just work out. Most of the time, a decision is made about desire, about justice, about what's right, about what someone wants. And sometimes that decision is simply, I'm worthy. You're welcome. Sometimes the decision is as simple as that. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of affection. I'm worthy of the promotion. I'm worthy of a salary that meets the freaking work I put into this, right? But oftentimes we just expect people to point us out and be like, okay, you know, now's your time. And that's not what happens. But that is for sure how I treated every aspect of my life. For the first few years when I was from MTV to Deutsch to, that's how I treated it. Then I tried to get intentional about what I wanted. I accidentally made a kid's show, and I just hoped that someone would find it and sprinkle the pixie dust on it, give it a ball gown, right? And boom, right? Like, I'm Martha Stewart. Like, that was what I was really expecting. And for 7 years, I toiled away. In the meantime, I moved from New York here to Portland. And at that point, I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'm just going to pause on this crazy Aunt Lindsey thing. I wasn't really talking about it. I didn't have any kids here in Portland. So I'm working on. And a friend finds out about, actually, no, that's a lie. Danielle Lee, who is known as the urban scientist on Twitter, she's amazing. So I was kind of dotted line connected to her via Twitter. We were both Scientific American contributors, bloggers. And she sends me a tweet. She's like, hey, Lindsey, can we talk? I said, yes. Like, this woman has like 30,000 followers. We can talk now. Yeah. You want to talk now? And so send her my number. We get on a video call, and she's like, hey, Lynn, so you haven't uploaded a video in like 2 years, or, you know, what's up with that? And I'm like, oh, you know, I don't have any money. People aren't finding it. I mean, like, I don't know. And she's like, Lindsey, first of all, your videos don't have titles. Like, let's just revisit that, right? And she's the second person to say, she's the first person at the time, later. She's like, Lindsey, you don't have videos. Like, how do you expect people to find you? And she's like, but not only that, Lindsey, do you realize that as hard as you've made it for people to find your content, people have still, like, you have thousands of views, and people are still asking you for more. Like, you can't stop doing this. On top of that, you're a Black woman that's teaching science, and that's a thing, and you need to really, really do it. Like, I don't have money personally, but if it's just a matter of money, we will raise this money together. But you have to do this because it's not about you. She took me to church, y'all. And I'm listening to her, and I'm like, it's not about me? But I'm scared. Right? And she's like, no, it's not about you, Lindsey. It's about all these little Black girls and all these little Latina girls and all these little white boys that need to see a woman of color as an authority so that he can grow up to respect someone like me when he makes it to my class. And I'm like, oh, so it's about you. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, so let's revisit this. So I end up raising $12,000 with the help of my best friend, Lee, over there in like 5 days. 12,000. The goal was 10. Raised more than 2,000 of what I was expecting, right? So I just churned out some old content that I had shot many years before. And then I just was like, oh, well, surely someone's gonna happen upon this now and like, give me $50,000. Like, this is gonna be a thing. And that didn't happen. I put my videos out over the course of a year. I found a really great editor and production guy named Wes, who's on my team right now. And people watched, people were excited that I was back, and they asked, when am I gonna do more? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So at this point, I am at Wyden and Kennedy, and things aren't going well. To be clear, they were the shiniest of knights in armor. They were the epitome of the place I had worked and worked and worked to be desirable to go to. They called me on the phone like, hey, we heard you're in Portland. I'm like, y'all know my name? I'm here in Portland, yep. And they're like, well, would you like to come work for us? And I'm like, you know, kind of, like, yes, I do, absolutely. But like in the back of my mind, this Crazy at Lindsey thing that I was still hoping like Oprah would find, that didn't have titles on them, was holding me back. Like I'd created this anchor that stopped me from really going anywhere in this other life that I was doing kind of in the interim. So I go to work at Wyden, and it's amazing for like the first like 6-8 months. It's great, right? My bosses are amazing. The people are amazing. I know there are quite a few Wydeners here. I'm actually wearing a Wyden jacket, which is even weirder. But like, like Wyden culture to me at that particular time was the best. There was nothing better, right? It felt like family. We went through a lot together. But my boss calls me into the office one day and she's like, hey, Lynn, so you remember how you said you wanted to be an executive assistant? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you're not good at this. For the same, I mean, I'm summing it up. For the same reasons why I hated my job 10 years earlier, I found myself doing the same thing again because I just wanted to be in service of someone else. I wanted to work as hard as I could so that someone was noticing me and saying, you're great, we're gonna move you into this other thing, or yeah, but no, Lindsey, like this is clearly not your wheelhouse. And so you have a choice. You can either move into your wheelhouse somewhere in here, or you can leave and go and find what you're supposed to be doing. Because you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so where I was expecting my knight in shining armor to say, here's an extraordinary life, my knight in shining armor was saying, girl, you need to go get it together because you're clearly not doing the thing that you were called to do. So around this time, I start thinking, it was like January of last year, I start thinking to myself, okay, what should I be doing? And I literally texted friends like, you know, hey guys, if you were a career coach, what would you say I should do? And they're like, Lindsey, you should be Crazy at Lindsey. Invariably. And I thought that most of these people had forgotten about it. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make, like, how am I gonna get paid? How am I gonna like pay rent? I'm in this city where, you know, like, I have no idea what that actually looks like. But I realized that if I had taken just a moment to reroute this energy that I had created around getting good at skills that I don't really like and aren't that great at, to figuring out what it is that I did need, if I got a little bit braver about telling people what it is that I was needing, maybe something would happen. So this month, March, is a very special month for me. March 1st marks the first day that I was no longer at Wyden. And then on the 27th of this month is the day that I incorporated my business and moved into my office, which is super weird. And this year, so it's really funny. Emily, are you in the room? Emily Waltman? Hey, girl. So I shot the Blue Star video. Guys, go watch my show. It's so good. So I was at her house about 10 days ago, and she said, hey, Lindsey, wow, you have, what a year you've had. You left Wyden, and it just seems like you blew up. I am so impressed. And in the moment that I wanted to be oh, no, in the moment that I wanted to just pretend like I had nothing to do with it, I stopped and I said, thanks, girl. I've worked really hard for this to happen. And she said, it shows. Yeah. Because when I left Wyden, I had to get intentional. I could no longer wait, as I had done for 7 years, for someone to find this thing that I was begging the universe for someone to find. So I learned how to make media kits and sponsorship packages, and I started asking people, telling people, hey, I need $10,000 to make 3 episodes. Do you know where I can get that? And miraculously, I raised $40,000 and got sponsors. And more people are seeing the show now. I mean, it's magical. I've given talks at Harvard and Google and all over the place. It's amazing what happens when you decide to get on purpose with your purpose. We oftentimes treat things like courage, like this amazing virtue that's for other people. But I am certain that there is a place in your life right now today that you can get intentional about. Maybe it's not creating a show. Maybe it's not asking for money or whatever it is. But maybe the courage that you need is to be directed at, why don't I feel worthy of this? Why haven't I asked for that yet? Why haven't I quit that stupid job yet? Why haven't I gotten that puppy? I mean, I don't know. What do you want, guys? What is it that you want to put into the world? And why aren't you putting it into the world? I will leave you with that question to chew on as I invite you all to ask me some questions. And just to be clear, there are 15 slides in there. And I regularly fully abandon my presentation, so I'm sorry. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming. Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah, honestly, this is such a weird answer. It was a total God thing. I literally felt called to the city. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a boo. I didn't have a job. I had a backpack and a couch to sleep on for 3 days, and then I accidentally moved into a grow house before it was legal. So I just really want you guys to know that it was whoa, what? But it. Honestly, I don't Portland is all of the things you've heard. This whole place is so connected. There are some people in this room who I've known for 1 month, 6 months, 4 years, and they feel like family. And I mean, I'm talking people that have gone overboard for me. Looking at you. Yeah, there are so many in this room, outside of this room, and that doesn't happen anywhere else. People here in Portland, and it's interesting, I think it's a multifold question. I think people here in Portland genuinely want good things in the world, and they genuinely want to participate and support those things. In New York, it's, you know, how much money and like hustle, you know, it's like, it's a different energy. There's a different reason behind things, like friendships, all those things. Like it's just different. Whereas in New York, like I can literally, I'm 7 generations in the house that I grew up in Marstown, New Jersey, and I lived and worked in New York for more than 10 years. I can count on one hand, outside of my family, the people that I'm like, gotta see them when I go home. These are my actual friends, 5 people. Here in Portland, I mean, if I go home to New Jersey, I'm getting text messages from people before I get off the plane, like, hey, when are you coming back? Because there's this, you know, artisan butcher job that I'm like, what? Okay, I'm gonna go to that when I get back. So it's just, there's a community here, and there's a level of support that comes along with that kind of community that is just, and it's not even necessarily New York versus Portland. It's very unique to Portland. It's very unique to Portland. Yeah. Michelle. Yes. My friend Mulu over there helped me with my titles, actually. Shout out to you. Yes, but it's been getting better. You didn't raise your hand. I noticed that. I had noticed an immediate change in my metrics. Immediate and profound. I was telling, we had like Mulu was kind of helping me with this for a while, and like it was, oh God, it was like, was it June over the summer that we were doing this? Right when I got back from VidCon. Like June, I like changed some of the titles and put tags in, like, you know, science projects, what? And like legit I would say within 60 days or less, my channel at the time had 60,000 views to the channel in 7 years. Within 60 days, it had 70,000 views. I mean, we're talking like a difference of 10,000 views just from titles and tags alone. Yeah. But they'd also been sitting there for a while, so that could have had something to do with it. Algorithm, you know. What's up?
I grew up watching like Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And I think the media in that realm would be a public health issue. Really inform and educate people who don't have access to other resources. What do you see as like the future of what you're building and its importance to youth in small towns or places all across the country that might not have good education?
Yeah, so you're asking why I think the show in particular is important?
And how many other shows like this are going to happen? Like, in the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah.
Is this going to be a huge thing?
I mean, I for sure think the whole STEM thing it's a big part of the conversation. We were talking about STEM as a hashtag in 2010 when no one cared. Like, no one cared. It wasn't a thing. Like, STEM was like, what's STEM? Like a flower? Like, what do you mean? What's this? You know? Whereas now, if I say STEM in almost any capacity, they're like, oh, science, technology, engineering, and what's the last one? Oh, math. Yeah. Like, people generally get what it is. But then there's this whole robust conversation around representation in STEM right now that we were talking about, again, 8 years ago. So it's kind of a matter of like, okay, you know, you guys are finally catching up. Like, we appreciate it. And the part of me that's excited to do the Fab Lab right now is that all the hard work has been done for so long, and now it just feels like parents, people who are digesting media on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, all of these different platforms that are available. You have Facebook that's competing in that space now. They want to give their parents are so aware of the abundance of crap that they're like, we just really want some broccoli. Like, can we get some broccoli, like, in a muffin? Like, can you please just give us, like, help me give my kids something nutritious, you know? I was a babysitter, guys. I did a lot of weird things, like putting vegetables in, like, all kinds of things. So that was where that came from. But yeah, I think that that's going to happen. I think that the trend, I mean, with a lot of things, I think a lot of things will flood the market. And then over the course of a few years, the cream will rise to the top, because I think a lot of people are attracted to it right now because of money and market share, and like they see it's an opportunity or whatever. But you know, I think when your heart's not really in something, it shows, which is why I think a show like Mr. Rogers as debatably boring as it was, like you knew that this man cared about you and your kids and he was giving you something that you wanted and you were addicted to that. We call it authenticity now, but that wasn't a word then, right? And it's kind of I actually hate it, but people, you know when you have a real friend. You know when you have a real friend. And I think the world is in a place right now where they just want a real friend. And I think that that is what makes a project like Crazy Aunt Lindsey different. I'm not, like, I'm in it now because I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm going to be Martha's do it. Like, yeah, that's going to happen, you know? But I'm looking at that as a side effect, as a result of the journey, as a result of the heart. Leading with one's heart, which, funny enough, is the core of the word of courage. Core is Latin for heart. Courage is French for of the heart. This is totally heart-led. And I think that things that are fully heart-led are the things that are hard to, they dance to the beat of their own drum. It doesn't make sense why it works, but it does, because your body craves it, you need it. Hey. To tell me their advice for getting funding? I have no idea, girl. Like, honestly, like, I have mentors right now who I'm just like, okay, can you please just tell me what I'm supposed to do? Okay, Lindsey, you need, like, revenue streams and, like, multiple streams of income and this whole thing. And I'm like, got it. Okay, but then how? Like, what after that? So, I mean, I would say, like, depending upon what your business is, like, if you're talking about a media project like mine, you need a media kit, you need a sponsorship deck, you need eyeballs, because that's ultimately, like, I think you will happen upon people who just are invested in the mission and believe in the mission and will give from that part. But, like, you know, most major brands that will keep your business sustainable, they're really interested in the eyeballs. Like, it's great that you're doing that with your heart and everything, but we're trying to move billions of dollars of product right now. So how does what you're doing contribute to that? Asking friends. Honestly, like, the way that me and Leah, like, raised $12,000 in days, literally, was I literally emailed or Facebook or texted directly, like, do not hit anyone. If you're trying to raise money, don't mass text anybody, because you've killed yourself. What's your name? Hey, Rebecca. I've been working on a project called the Fab Lab for, like, 5 years. I'm trying to raise $10,000 in the next few hours. Can you give me 10? Thanks, girl. That's how I did it. And I mean, the thing was like, the Indiegogo specifically was probably like 45 days. On the I think the 42nd day, I had like $5,000. I wasn't gonna get it, and I just started calling people, emailing people, like directly asking them for a specific amount. Be specific. Just be intentional. Like, what do you need? Like, you can't give me $10,000, but you can give me 10. So I'm gonna ask you for 10, and maybe you'll give me 25. Hey. Lately, it's been waking up to Chris Brown's Fine China. Shout out to you, Celie. We have a dance. I pray a lot. I pray. As critical as I am of Christian culture, I am for sure a very spiritual Christian person. I believe God has me here for a reason. And it's almost cliche to be like, God's will or whatever, because like sometimes God's will like really sucks, you know what I mean? But when I'm feeling that, like when I can't get out of bed, when I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, let me call HR at Wyden and just beg them for a job back. Like, let me, I pray. And you can meditate, you can morning page journal, whatever it is that you do. For me, it's praying. Hi. So For sure. Is this like the last question? Okay, got it. They've been trying to flag me down for a minute. Does anybody else have a question? Oh, can I get a question from there after I answer this one? Do you guys want to leave? Can we do this for a few more minutes? Okay, great. So what has science brought to my life? Science has, it's really not about the science for me. Like, it is about the science. Like, I go to, like, these things called ComSciCon. It's a communication science conference. And I get to, like, hear PhDs, like, talk about their shit. I feel so smart. So that's what science has done for me, not because I've done anything, but like I get to be in the room with people who are so passionate and so knowledgeable. Like they know like the smallest thing about the smallest thing in the world that has this profound impact on the rest of us. Like it's crazy. So science is really, I mean, it helps me to feel smart. Which I really didn't before. And it has helped me to see tangibly what I think we all perceive conceptually. Like we hear all the time, we're connected, you know, like vibes. Like we hear those things and it's like, yeah, but then you like hear some science about it and you're like, whoa, I'm experiencing meiosis right now. And I'm connected. Like it's like it tangibilizes. That's not a word. What we kind of think and hear and feel on an intrinsic level. Okay, so people online. Bye guys. Thanks for coming. Hi. I'll see you at TED.
Somebody wants to know about the courage it took to tell your mother that you were going to commit to Crazy and Lindsey.
Whoa. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so I think by the time I told my mom that I was going to go full time with Crazy Aunt Lindsey, it was a long time coming for her too. She was ready for it. Now, 7 years before, it was like, what? Job, insurance, salary, get out of my house, like, I don't get what this whole entrepreneurship thing is, like creating, no. I'm going to say no to that. But by the time last year, she was like, yeah, and that makes total sense. Like, yes.
And then the other question.
But guys, go. I thank you. If you have to go, go. Bye, Lulu. Thanks. One more question, I swear. Doing STEM. Well, it's interesting because I feel like being a brown person, well, okay. It's been really interesting because, this past year, people have suddenly like found out that I do this thing and that I'm like this extreme extrovert that like likes to be in front of crowds. And so people will oftentimes ask me to come and speak or host or provide an experience. They'll ask me for these things. Can we give you product? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm like, yeah, but I have an honorarium. And my show costs money to make. It's very interesting how readily like white male speakers will be given honorarium just like by default. By default, guys. But we want your brown female face in the room, but you want to be paid? For your intellectual property and your time? I don't think so. And I'm being facetious a little bit, but that's genuinely the heart. I get asked a lot to be in a lot of rooms. And my time is never equated to monetary quality. Almost all of the time. So we can talk about that being a gender thing. We can talk about that being a race thing. Generally speaking, like being black in Portland is not easy. Like I love this city. Like I love this city and they have been so welcoming and so, but like racism is real and dating sucks, and like the list can go on. Yeah. Thank you guys for your time.